The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here and Dan Rylance, and very pleased to welcome to the show this evening Dennis and Karlene Leatherman. They are the organizers and probably founders of the Oshkosh Saturday Farmers Market, and we're going to find out all about the Farmers Market and why it moved and what the move has meant for the Farmers Market and that kind of thing. So thanks to both of you for being here. We appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah.
Very much. Well, you know, one of the first things that we should probably talk about is the move. I mean, it has for years been in the parking lot of City Hall, just outside from where we're taping. And were you guys involved with it back then?
Yes.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got involved with the market back in 2008.
Okay.
And we were the administrators of the market 2008, 2009. And then Mary Rupenthal was the manager. Some health problems came in. We took over management of the market 2010. So the move for 2011 was all on us.
Okay. For better or worse, right? But I've heard
better.
great things.
For
I've
better.
heard
For better.
great things about it, about the move. I
Right.
was just kidding, of course, but no, I've heard wonderful things about the move. And so, you know, what made you guys step up to the plate and get involved in the farmers market? You know, and why? Because that's got to be a huge chore to, you know, try and keep something like that operating.
I don't think we know.
We told Mary for several years, don't be grooming us, we're not going to take this over, and we just did.
See what happens?
We just did.
Maybe you jinxed
How
yourself.
many hours a week in the summer do you put into this?
I put in probably 35 or 40.
Wow.
Same for you? Or-
Not quite as
No.
much. I work full-time,
Okay.
and my job is
Wow.
mostly the pretty work, and during the day at
Yeah.
the market on Saturday mornings.
Well, your work shows.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, very much so.
No.
Well, let's talk about the move. What precipitated the move from City Hall down to Main Street? And for folks, in case you haven't been down there at all, it is on Saturdays, and it's in the 400 and 500 blocks of North Main Street. Dan's been down there, I think, probably every weekend. I've been down there once. But, you know, what prompted the move?
The construction out on Church Street, primarily. We were told that Church Street was going to be torn up, and we were also told that there was going to be putting retention ponds underneath the parking lot out here. So either this summer or next summer, it was going to be totally impossible to have the market in the City Hall parking lot. So we knew we had to move, and we looked all over creation. We talked about the Leach, we talked about the Riverside Park, the parking lot between the convention center and the Leach. St. Vinny's was looked at. Mercy wanted us to move it out to the hospital out there. We talked to Mark Harris about possibly moving into the county courthouse or down to the new parking lot that they were building down there next to Oshkosh-Bagosh. And some friends of ours, Chris and Sarah Larson, that own Beckett's, were aware of, we were struggling trying to find a place to move. And they suggested, with the construction being what it was, the new Main Street, why don't we look at moving down there? They convinced us to approach the bid, and I guess it's okay to tell public. Chris and Sarah said that if the bid turned us down, Chris and Sarah Larson or Beckett's, would underwrite the market moving down to Main Street. Because the biggest problem was making a move like that was going to cost us $3,000 or $4,000 in all new signs, everything that we did not have the money. So we approached the bid loved it, and the rest is history.
And so the Business Improvement District helped underwrite some of those costs then?
Yes.
Okay. How much did they underwrite, the whole thing, or just part of it, or?
They gave us $3,000,
Okay.
which
Wow,
took care
that's
of
terrific.
most of the new signs that we had to have printed and put up, and help pay for a little bit of the advertising, but the rest of it, we always advertised a little bit, and all of our vendor fees normally took care of everything, so
Sure.
that took care of that.
Well, and kudos to Chris and Sarah from Beckett's too. I mean,
Yes.
that's a generous offer. And they, Sarah hasn't been on the show, but Chris has been on the show before, and just a wonderful guy. So kudos to them for that. So what has the response been from two different segments of our population? The people who come to the farmers market and the downtown merchants, because this has got to be helpful for their business as well, I would think.
You want to tackle that?
It's been tremendous. It is far beyond what we ever thought. We doubled the amount of vendors, and we thought double the amount of customers. Officials are estimating 9,000 to 10,000 customers per week. The merchants on Main Street are loving it. They are getting, maybe not Saturday business, but people are coming back during the week saying, "Oh, I didn't know you were down here." And coming back, they didn't have time on Saturday, came back during the week.
Yeah. You mentioned that you doubled the number of vendors. How many vendors can you actually accommodate?
Last Saturday, we had 108 vendors.
108.
Right.
Okay.
We've been averaging 100 vendors per Saturday, and last Saturday was the largest. It varies week to week. We have a lot of fill-in vendors, and one of our produce vendors normally has 3 or 4 spaces.
Okay.
If a produce vendor cancels, I can put 4 craft vendors in.
Okay.
So depending on cancellations and that, it varies up and down. That's where a lot of those 30 hours that I spend.
Yeah. And the pie people at the corner right in front of the Great Estates were not there last week, so that may have opened up a couple places
Right.
for you, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
You do know it well, don't you? The
Oh, yeah.
pie
Oh,
people.
yeah. This is probably an unfair question. It may be premature, but will we know in the end of October what the economic impact of the Saturday market on Main Street was in 2011? Is there any way that we can do that?
We won't know,
You won't
Yeah.
know. I understand.
but I would assume
Would
that
bid maybe?
the bid should be able to tell you.
Yeah. I would think that would be an important statistic for Oshkosh to promote, because it's incredible what it is this year from the other years. I mean, it's the vendors. I really have a hard time on egg rolls now where I'm going to go. Last few years it was pretty easy,
Right.
and I still have my favorite. But boy, there's 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 that I've never, and so I rotate a little bit because. But I have a granddaughter from Chicago, and she has to go to that one. She will not change. She has to go to that one. But that's just wonderful to
Yeah,
have
that's
that.
what we told people when we were making the move. I said, you're used to buying a package of 3 or 4 egg rolls.
Right.
Buy one, walk down to
That's
the
a
next
good
one,
idea.
buy one.
I get a better deal though for 5. I'm kidding. But no, that's the music on the corner there has been wonderful through the summer.
Right.
Really has added, I think, and you still had some of your face painting on the kids for whether once a month or I don't know how many times you do that in the summer, but that's popular.
Very.
Yeah. I don't know what that radio van on. Well, I enter from East Parkway because I live on Parkway. I don't know what he's doing there. Last time now there was no music, Now, I don't know whether that's permanent or not, but I like the no music
Okay.
because it was loud. But it's a great thing. It really is. You guys should really feel proud that this has been such a success.
Yeah.
It
Thank
really
you.
has. Yeah.
You mentioned 9,000 or 10,000 visitors or attendees. How does that compare with when you were still in the City Hall parking lot?
City Hall parking lot, we were estimating 1,800 people. It's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you how we figured the 1,800. It's an interesting story, but the police department estimates that there's about 3,000 people at the market at a given time
Okay.
between 9 and 12:30. Extrapolating that it started at 8 and runs at 12:30, their figures are that we're getting about 9 or 10,000 every Saturday. So, and that jives with what our vendors are telling us, because the vendors are saying that they're seeing 4 or 5 times as many customers as they saw in City Hall. So 4 or 5 times the 2,000 works out. So
Sure,
we're going to run with that figure.
sure. You know, now that you've got your first season, summer, if you will, under your belt, you know, nothing is ever static. You've probably learned some lessons through this. What might some of the lessons be, and what will you possibly do differently in the next year?
Go ahead.
I don't know. I think we'll have to wrestle for this one. I'm not sure. Each week we have something, some little thing, little nuance
Sure.
that we've had to deal with, and it's, you know, chalk it up for our learning year.
Sure.
You know, that's pretty much what we're doing, is taking notes, and we'll make sure we don't do whatever next year. So
Can I push you a little bit further on that?
to give an example,
What was a big positive surprise for you, and what was a big negative surprise that you had anticipated at all?
Or a challenge?
Or
that,
challenge,
You know,
yeah.
The big negative surprise, we were expecting, and we told all of our vendors last year when we had a meeting, brought all of the vendors in, told them what to expect and everything. We were expecting customers to be on the sidewalk and in the middle of the street.
Okay.
And we told all of our vendors to be prepared to vend to both sides of their booth.
Okay.
And the first day of the market, it was obvious.
That's all I hear.
Everybody stayed in the middle of the street,
Yeah.
and that changed just a whole lot of the dynamics that we were expecting. So that was one of the things that didn't work out.
It's reasonable as to why it didn't, in some ways. I mean, it would be hard to go both ways, right?
Well,
yes and no.
Yes and no.
You know,
Okay.
it depends on how the vendors set up their
Yeah,
booth.
that's true. Yeah.
And we didn't want to really turn our backs to the merchants.
No,
We
no,
wanted to be
yeah.
able to, you know, say, hey, we're including you. We drew
Yeah.
a circle and included you.
But like the Magnet has their tables out early, and
Right.
that goes the other way. There's always people sitting there.
Exactly.
right.
So yeah, okay. How about the best positive surprise?
Ooh.
Didn't expect. There it is, all of a sudden.
10,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay, good answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was
That's got to
thinking.
ring the bells.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, you talk about the economic impact for the downtown businesses. I'm not sure precisely how they'd figure that out, but they have to be able to, I would think, have some general idea
Yeah.
of what their business change has been
Right.
financially. You know, and that makes me think about another question for you. I've talked to farmers market organizers and vendors in other communities. There are some communities that have farmers markets on like 2 days of the week. I'm not exactly sure how they work it out, but somehow they manage to work it out. Don't want you guys to be working 80 hours a week, but you know, is there ever a possibility that this thing could expand to a second day of the week? Or you'd have to change the name then, of course.
Right.
Well, the last thing you mentioned, changing the name. If you look at the Northwestern or listen to the radio, nobody ever calls it the Oshkosh Saturday Farmers Market anymore. That's the official name,
Okay.
but it's the Farmers Market.
Farmers Market.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what
The
day it would
Farmers
be.
Market is,
No.
is
No.
and
Gotcha.
it's great with us. I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
Yeah.
that's what you need to understand, and in case people don't understand, we are unpaid volunteers. The entire market organization is unpaid volunteers.
Sure.
So to get a second night, another day of market, ain't going to happen with just
You'd need help.
just us. We would need
And
help.
it shouldn't.
And but like I was telling
Yeah.
Dan earlier, downtown probably not, as far as the traffic and everything. But Roosevelt School is definitely planning on having a market on Friday evenings next year. They were hoping to have it this year, and it didn't quite make it. There's a lot of talk about moving the Festival Foods Market back to Sundays. The Rotary has been working with them big time to try to get that market, because a Saturday and a Sunday market is ideal for the vendors, because what they can't sell on Saturday, they can sell on Sunday. Right now, what they can't sell on Saturday may not last until
Wednesday
Tuesday.
or whatever, sure. Yeah.
So,
I've been privy to some discussions off the record about a move to have the Oktoberfest next year on Main Street rather than at the Leach. Now, there are all sorts of problems. There are some people for it and there's some people against it. But I know that's a discussion that's taking place among some of the people on Main Street.
okay, that hasn't come to our ears
No,
yet.
but I mean,
No,
it's yeah, and there's all sorts of variables on each side. But that would be one additional thing that I mentioned to them before, that I go to Rochester, Minnesota right away, or quite often, and they started a Thursday night. Not really a farmer's market. It was more taste and have a drink, music all over, and it blew them out. I mean, it's so popular there on Thursday night that everyone comes uptown.
Well, and people are already downtown on Thursday nights because of Waterfest.
That's right.
And other types
Yeah.
of events going on down
So
at
I
the
think it
beach.
portends other things, but these people have...
They're overworked.
Oh, yeah, no.
Underpaid.
Yeah, I think we should send them on a cruise and let them enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we went to an evening market, they'd have to double our salary. So,
Let's add that up.
Easy enough to do since you're being paid
Yes,
nothing.
okay.
Very underpaid, folks. One of the notes that you had provided to us was something about a pumpkin decorating day. I have no idea what that is, but it's obviously timely
coming
since
up, yeah.
Right.
since Halloween's around the corner.
Right.
So tell us about Pumpkin Decorating Day. What's that all about?
On October 15th,
Yep.
we will set aside Merritt Street, where we had
Okay,
Kids
where
Day.
you had the painting of the...
Right, we
yeah.
had Kids Day this year, and we will actually have pumpkins there for the kids, and there's no carving or anything, so nothing like that. But we'll have markers and stickers and things, and so any child that comes can get a pumpkin and decorate it. And we also will have on hand the Oshkosh North High School Art Club. Will be on hand for some face painting and some, help with decorating, and
That's good.
it's free for the kids.
Yeah, and each get a free pumpkin.
they each get a free pumpkin. The art club is doing it, hoping to get some tips in their tip jar, because they're trying to raise funds for a trip. So they're going to come down and help us out. We wash each other's hands on that one. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's give a plug to whoever is donating the pumpkins.
Yeah.
Who's
These are
donating-
vendors that are doing
yeah,
this,
Who's
or-
donating those?
Some of the pumpkins will be donated by the vendors.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll buy them.
You'll buy them.
But we'll have 400 or 500 pumpkins there.
This has not been a good year for pumpkins. I mean,
Yeah.
growing-wise, it's second year in a row where it's been kind of...
Right.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to. We have
Okay.
some vendors that say, oh, they have a lot, and some that not so good.
Price probably difference on their answer.
Dan, you mentioned music earlier, and since you're down there every week, and I haven't been, obviously, I'm not really sure. Was that like radio coming from a car, or because you guys have live music, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I was a minor complaint about the loud music entrance, and I think
Yeah.
it's no longer loud.
Right.
So,
Oh,
but-
so it's not necessarily the live music, or you,
We-
just tell us about the live music
Okay.
that you have.
Sorry. I should have shut up when I brought this up. I'm sorry.
We've got two different things.
Yes, thank you.
At the center of the market, every Saturday from 9 until 12, we have live music.
Okay.
And
Great
some
groups,
Great groups.
absolutely.
Local? They're local musicians then?
Yeah, most of
Yeah,
them are
yeah,
local. Aaron Byer with his Dr. Kickbutt and his Orchestra of Death, their vaudeville music, and there's some bluegrass, some jazz. It
Great.
varies week to week. And I'll put in a plug here. When we decided to move down here, the UWO Credit Union came forward and asked us if they could sponsor the music. And they gave us money to pay. All of the bands that we get are all paid for by the UWO Credit Union.
Wonderful.
So
Good credit.
thank you.
Yeah, good credit.
Yeah. Then down at the other end, what he was complaining about was
I always complain.
Cumulus Broadcasting came on board and asked us if they could have one of their radio trucks there every Saturday in exchange for coverage on all of their stations
Oh, I didn't know.
talking about the farmers market.
Okay.
So every week, one of their trucks is there. Some of them play music, some of them don't,
Yeah.
depending on the radio station
Yeah.
and the personnel that come down. You must have got there on a good day and a bad day.
I've been
So
more,
now you know who
I've
to
been more
complain
bad
to.
days than good days, but last Saturday was a good day because it was totally silent.
I'm not sure if the director of the radio station is going to appreciate hearing that.
I have his name. No, I
Okay.
How many vendors can you actually accommodate? I know you said it averages like around 100, and one weekend you had 108. How big could this get?
We're full
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have any spare space whatsoever at the market. We might be making a slight change in our layout of the market next year where we might be able to add 5 or 6 more vendors, but I'd say probably 115 would probably be the max that we'll ever be able to get.
Okay. So if somebody is interested in getting on board for next year's market, even though you're just, starting to kind of wind down with this year's, is it ever too early to give you folks a call and get on board for the next season?
No, never ever.
Okay.
We've got full season vendors, and then we have fill-in vendors that fill in the spaces when
Someone can't be there. For
someone
whatever
can't be
reason.
there
For
for
whatever
whatever
reason.
For whatever reason. So far this year, there's been one Saturday where I had one vendor left on my fill-in list that I wasn't able to get into the market. Otherwise, every Saturday, every vendor that I've had on my fill-in list, I've been able to work into the market because of cancellations.
Okay.
So we highly recommend that if there are people who are interested in next year, try to get in this year as a fill-in vendor, because all of our returning vendors get mailed applications in January. New vendors, people coming on board after that, are going to be coming on board after that.
Sure. And we've got the website address that we hope have been putting up, but it's Oshkosh Saturday Farmers Market is it .com or
Com.
okay,
Com.
.com. And so if we haven't been able to put that up, hopefully we can get that up a few more times yet before the end of this segment. Go ahead.
Who's responsible for the new bike racks that are by some of the buildings and the garbage things that are? Does bid pay for those, or the city?
As
Or?
far as I know, the bid.
The bid, okay.
Yeah.
I know I was in Chicago a couple weeks ago down at Navy Pier, and I noticed with their bins, half side was for regular garbage and the other half was for recyclables. I don't see any recyclables that I've seen on Main Street. They all go together, unless I'm.
Well,
No.
there are labeled. If
Are
you
there
look,
labeled?
If you look inside, there's a
Ooh.
little spot. One says
Okay,
trash
I
and one
missed
says
it.
recycle.
Okay, because with the eating things, there are a lot of containers
Right.
that are clearly recyclable.
Well, and we put 5 trash barrels out ourselves.
Did
so
you?
we,
Okay.
we
We've
do
got-
we do garbage too.
Okay, okay. Wow. Sweep the streets afterwards?
Not quite.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that was just an observation.
Clean up vomit before, though.
We've done that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is definitely a labor of love for you guys, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you going to ask them how much longer they're going to do this?
I wasn't, but okay, there we go. Dan just asked the question.
Are you into this for another season, or you think?
Oh, sure.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, you heard it first here.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
we do.
I think that's
One
wonderful.
year at a time.
1 year at a time. I understand. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's
I've still got a few more years left. So.
good. I kind of knew that, but I don't want to some of the baseball players are going for 2- and 3-year contracts. I didn't know, how long you were. You're going 1-year contract at a time.
You one at a time.
Yeah, and no bonuses, just the same flat rate.
You're right.
Okay.
All right. Well,
That's
Dennis
wonderful.
and Karlene, thank you much
Yeah.
for being here. Again, it's OshkoshSaturdayFarmersMarket.com. Check it out. If you're interested in either being a fill-in vendor or hopefully a new vendor for the upcoming season in 2012, you heard it here. It's never too early to make that inquiry. So give them a call and get on board with it. And by all means, go down and check it out. It's a wonderful thing.
And
You
thanks
don't
for
know-
making the summer better for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
been a great
Thank you both.
success, really.
Thanks much for being here. Just sit
Great.
tight. We're going to take a real short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by County Executive Mark Harris and City Manager Mark Rohloff. We'll be right back.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. And as promised, we're joined now by two Marks. They've never been on the show together, but they've individually been on many, many times. So welcome to both of you for being here. County Executive Mark Harris and City Manager Mark Rohloff. And Mark, thanks for coming in on really short notice. We just kind of contacted you, I think, yesterday about coming on, or maybe it was Tuesday night, I guess it was. It was Tuesday night.
2 minutes after I made my presentation.
Well, that was Dan's doing.
Because I was watching, I said, this has got to work this week, because you were doing it earlier and you were doing it, and we thought, oh, if we could get these two important people on at the same time, we'll nail this down in a half hour.
So we
what's
appreciate
going
it very,
So
very
instead of
much.
important people, you got the two of us?
Good.
Well, so what we primarily want to talk about, a couple of things really, but primarily the merging of the health departments. Okay. So this has been talked about for a while, and steps are continuing to be taken to move this thing forward. Give us, from a county perspective, what it means, and from a city perspective, what it means. And I don't care who goes first. County can go first, I guess.
Well, it's an opportunity to save quite a bit of money, because currently all three health departments have some vacant positions, and so a combination of the three will be about 20% less people than what all three fully staffed separately would be. So it's a chance for some real savings.
Who are the three health departments?
The Neenah
Okay.
City Health Department, the Oshkosh City Health Department, and the county's health department that currently covers the towns, the village of Winnebago, and the city of Omro.
Thank you. Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt, but three doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
We should tie them up.
And you mentioned the city of Neenah. You've talked to Mayor Shirk about it, and he's on board with this as well.
Well, of course, it's going to require approval of his city council, but we've worked very closely together now for months and months, and I think we're close.
Yeah. And do you have some sense of where their city council is at on this? I mean, I know when I covered their council as a reporter back in a number of years ago, that was an interesting dichotomy there, and I don't know what their council makeup is like these days, but do you have a sense of
I
what
think
they
they're
think?
I think they're likely to support it
Okay.
because it gets the whole cost of the health department out of Nina's budget, and it gets future costs for benefits and payroll out of their budget, as well as future loss of state grants. What would you think, Mark?
Well, you announced at the meeting on Tuesday that there may be a joint meeting of the two. Is that?
Right, we're trying,
Yeah.
we're trying, and I guess the indicator is that, first of all, when we were looking at, when Mark Harris was seeking some additional funding for some additional work from the consultants, both city councils enthusiastically supported it. And so I think that was a good indicator that, that things were on the right track. And I mentioned Tuesday night to the council that the city of Neenah was interested in perhaps having a joint meeting, and the Oshkosh council members were almost animated when they thought of the concept of having a joint meeting with the Neenah City Council, which has probably never happened in the history of the two communities. So just those unprecedented things. And we were logistically trying to figure out if we could do it with the county board as well, but we didn't want it to get too unwieldy, and we wanted to make sure we could just have a good conversation with both or all three legislative bodies. And
Where would that be held? Would it be held in Oshkosh or in Neenah, or are you guys going to flip a coin?
we
or
were
how's that
flipping
gonna
back
work?
and forth. Really, it came down to which date was most convenient for both parties. At first, we were talking Neenah. Now we're talking Oshkosh. But it's really going to come down to what date works best for everybody. So we don't have that date set just yet, but I think we're getting close.
Well, whichever council goes to whichever other city, it's going to be an eye-opener for them because the council chambers are set up completely different.
Yes.
Completely different. So it'll be eye-opening for either one.
Maybe we'll have it in school gym or something. Half court or something.
Or maybe somewhere in the town of Vinland in between.
Yeah.
Could do that, could do that. And so you said about 20% less staff. Will you try and find another place for those people? Will they just, will those positions
Well,
be
that
done
goes-
away with?
Yeah, those are
For
largely
retired
vacant.
positions, or what happens?
because we've been in this process for a while, and the process started when there already was a vacancy as far as a permanent head of the Oshkosh Health Department, and that there was a head of the Neenah Health Department that was about to retire, and there's an acting director there, but it's a temporary position. So when we say 20% less people than the fully staffed, that's largely already occurred through attrition.
Okay, all right.
So basically, positions that would otherwise have to be refilled if they stayed independent can remain vacant in a consolidated health department.
From a pure number standpoint, the base number that we're using are the number of people that existed in our combined departments in 2009 when some of these vacancies occurred. And that total is about 45 people. And so the 20% that the county executive is referring to gets us down to 36. But through attrition and through vacancies, we've all maintained vacancies over these past few months because we didn't want to be overstaffed. We're actually down to 32 full-time equivalents. We're using some other temporary people to help fill in areas, but we actually are 4 people below the combined strength of a joint department. So we're not putting anybody out to pasture as a result of this.
All right, good. Go ahead, Mark.
I think there's actually more efficiencies that we can get out of a combined health department in time, but we want to get it up and operating, making sure that we can maintain the service levels so that everybody gets the same service or better service than what they were getting prior to the merger. But over the long term, we really should be able to wring out a little bit more efficiency in a combined department than what we're starting at. So I think we're starting at a real reasonable level.
Well, this certainly isn't the first time at the rodeo for Neenah as far as consolidating things. I mean, they consolidated their police department with Menasha's, I want to say probably 8 to 10 years ago. Something
Fire
like that.
departments, yeah.
Fire departments, yes, I'm sorry. And that has worked out very, very well. I've not heard, you always hear a few complaints, but you know, there's always going to be people who complain about something. I'm not thinking of you, Dan. But, you know, there are a lot of things that go into merging departments. And here you've got 3 that are coming together. Each one has very similar guidelines that they follow and ordinances, if you will, that are on the books. And then I'm sure that they each, you know, have some that are different from the other 2, or maybe from one of the others. How do you go about kind of melding that all together so that that there's a uniform set of rules and guidelines for the whole department to follow for all communities?
That's the crux of the whole issue. With respect to a lot of the rules are really mostly sanitation rules, and a lot of them are different because the levels of service we provide. And Oshkosh has historically been an urban health department, and the county has typically been a rural health department. But at one time, they were providing services in urban and rural areas together. So I think we can bring those together. It's just reconciling those types of rules. There's a question about brat fry inspections, because right now the city does brat fry inspections on weekends, and the county doesn't do that. So we're going to have to reconcile that out, and it'll probably involve flexing of schedules so that we can have somebody available on weekends to do those things. But those things we've recognized that we'll have to work through those, and the rules will have to be reconciled as well. But one of the things that the city will gain, it's not a huge thing, but it's something we currently don't provide, is inspections of tattoo parlors. The county has historically done that. The city has not historically done that. So that'll be an added service. So the standard for the tattoo parlors will effectively be the county standard, because we don't have standards set. Other ones will reconcile those, and that'll be part of the transition process that we'll go through, because it won't make a lot of sense to have 2 different sets of rules. I think it'd be confusing for businesses who are regulated, as well as the poor inspectors who could be crossing the street and changing the rules. And that won't make sense either.
Yeah. Well, and then there's something else that is probably, it won't make a hill of beans of difference to the general public or how things are enforced. But I'm just kind of thinking in my own mind here how this is going to work. You know, say you've got a city employee right now in the city health department, and then you merge the health departments. Are those employees then going to become county employees, or do they remain city employees? How does that work?
They'll become county employees.
Okay.
And that's not as hard as it sounds, because remember, we're both under the same state pension system. So there's no change there. It's continuous. That shift has no adverse impact. So it's a matter of looking at where people's job titles fall within ours. And basically we've made the decision that no one should suffer a cut in pay by virtue of shifting from the city to the county. But as it turns out, when we look at the people, everybody fits within the ranges we already have. So there are some minor things that we'll have to take care of to make sure the employees stay whole, but I think we're only talking about 12 people merging into the county health department. So I don't think it's going to be that complex.
And their employment tenure would probably remain the same and so forth too?
We've worked through those. It was a lot easier than I think either of us thought. We said, oh, when we get to the human resources, the HR issues, it's going to be tough. And a couple weeks ago, we asked our HR people to get together, and they came back and said, we got this figured out. And you do? Wonderful. So tell us what you did. And they worked through those types of issues. And surprisingly, we tried not to get into the details as we went through the discussions. So we didn't realize at the time that the wages were very close to one another. And of course, it's the same retirement system. And even though we have different health plans, there's a lot of comparability with those. And with things happening at the state level, there's a lot of uniformity that's coming. And then things like sick leave accruals and things of that nature, we worked those out fairly easily. In fact, once the HR people brought these issues together, we worked through them in half an afternoon.
Wow.
I think
That's terrific.
the 3 leaders, county executive, mayor, and city manager, I think we all had the same philosophy that people should not be harmed by virtue of the consolidation. And so once you have the same philosophy, then we let the HR people work out the details on how that can be accomplished.
Yeah, delegate that to them, right? Go ahead.
Devil is always in the detail of mergers. Could you address a little bit the costs, the changes between what it currently is and what you think the costs will be with a merged healthcare program?
Well, we're promising at least $350,000 of savings compared to fully staffed separate departments.
Okay.
But the savings on personnel are actually significantly more than that. But we're also building in the knowledge that the state's going to be cutting back on some of the grants that health departments operate on.
Okay.
So we're comparing what fully staffed budgets would have been, figuring out the savings, and then backing off what we anticipate losing in grants. Now, there's still going to be changes over time in how health departments operate, because the support for the health departments is likely to erode in the current environment over time. But I don't think there'll be any adverse change directly related to the consolidation. But for instance, if the state dramatically cuts back on grants and the feds dramatically cut back on grants, then obviously we'll have to deal with that, but we would have had to deal with that as separate
Anyway.
departments as well.
Sure.
I think we're going to be better equipped to handle what curveballs will get thrown at us by the state and federal government, because our biggest fear is that these grants could dry up in no time. And if they would, we'd be much less able to respond to those changes if we're all separate. But together, we're going to be able to move resources a lot more easily than we would separately. So we're stronger together than we are apart.
If there's some sort of outbreak of communicable disease, I think with so much of the county covered under one health department, that it'll be better coordinated than if we're separate health departments. So that if there's some meningitis occurring on UWO's campus, we'll be on alert for that on other campuses within the county. So I think we can better coordinate that, although we've already worked together quite a bit.
Yeah, they've worked together, but organizationally it'll just be a little more seamless. The resources will be able to be coordinated a lot easier because it'll be under one command and control system. It has worked very well. The community health improvement program that's been going on has been done in the midst of all this, and yet everybody's been working very well together. The other advantages that the combined departments offer is a lot of people don't necessarily know how some of these programs work unless they're a recipient.
Sure.
But for example, the WIC program, the Women, Infants, and Children's program, has been provided to everybody in the county, including the cities of Neenah and Oshkosh, through the county since its inception. But one of the difficulties lies in when somebody is, for lack of a better term, outgrown the WIC program, or when the services of the WIC program are just so limited that they need additional county services or additional health services. They'd be going from one person providing that care or providing that service and saying, okay, you need to go over to the county's health department, not the WIC office. The WIC office was down here on Washington, and out at Parkview was where the rest of the health department was. Now everything is located at the old Oshkosh-Bagosh building on Otter, but they would still be sending people over to the city health department just 6 blocks away. Now they'll have a seamless transition from one service to the other. If a WIC professional identifies a need that needs to go to another health agency, they'll go directly in that office. In fact, they can walk down the hall and around the corner, and boom, they're there.
They're there.
Similarly, there's a lot of coordination where you go from a health program to a social service program and back and forth and back and forth. The county will have all those services right there, and so it'll be more coordinated, and the handoffs will be better. And one of the biggest things you hear is that people fall through the cracks, and how does these tragedies occur and people fall through the cracks? We can't guarantee that they'll stop falling through the cracks, but the likelihood of people falling through the cracks will be much less because they'll be coordinated through a single agency.
And we're also committed to maintaining a presence in the north of the county. So there'll be a health office either in the Neenah City Hall, or eventually it might be consolidated into the Human Service Building in Neenah. But that's an advantage for the towns that are close to Neenah, because currently they have to come in to wherever the county's health department's located, which of course had been out on the Parkview campus, but now is in what used to be the Bagash building, which is the county administrative building now. Well, this will give them the option. If they prefer to seek those services at the Neenah satellite, they can do so. And so it'll be more convenient.
Okay.
You already answered my question on location, which is the old Oshkosh-Bagash building. I have two others. When do you think the merger would occur, and what are major issues left to be resolved?
I'll let you go on when you want it.
I would really like it to occur January 1.
Of 12?
Yes,
Okay.
and part of that is because you really have to make a decision on where it's going to be levied, and you have to make a decision on whether the cities are continuing to have a separate health department, and that decision should coordinate with the calendar year. Now, there is still some flexibility there where a city could continue to treat it as if they're maintaining a health department and then lease or contract for all those services from the county. But in my mind, that's the same as doing the merger because we have to absorb their people to deliver those services. So I really hope that we get this completed for January 1. And my budget as it's prepared now includes the levy for a combined health department, although we've actually run the numbers and we're prepared to substitute pages that don't combine them at that point in time. But that's the target.
And the goal is January 1,
January.
and I'm just more of a worrywart. and Mark's very optimistic about it, but we're working towards that. If we can get it done by January 1st, we're certainly going to try, but we have to have a contingency, but we have to figure out, we're going to reach the fork in the road mid-November because all of our agencies are adopting their budgets
Right.
and have to adopt their levy, which is really the key issue. We could budget whatever we want to, but it's really what we levy. And that's
And your levies are limited.
right. Our levies are limited, but they're also, the county can't levy for city health services unless we've surrendered our health department through a resolution of the council. So, and the county needs both the cities of Neenah and Oshkosh to make that decision. So we have to fish or cut bait sometime in mid-November. So we're working really hard over the next 6 weeks so that we can say, okay, can we do it the way Mark is hoping it can work out, or do we develop an interim contingency plan? But if it's not January 1st, it would be very soon thereafter. The quicker we do this, the better it is for everybody.
So your worry issue is to get that budget that will complement the merger with the county and get that done.
Right, but
Is that, would you say, that is the biggest hurdle that you have right now to overcome?
I would say
Or is there something else
I
that's
think
gonna be-
reconciling the codes.
Okay,
Okay.
that's going to be tougher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Because really, it's just a decision of, and when we reach the middle of November, we're going to know which way we have
Sure.
to go because
Yeah.
we're ready or we're not
I
ready.
understand.
But I think some details can still be worked out after the 1st, because
Like
I'm
codes.
elected by the entire county, so I'm still very accountable to Neenah and Oshkosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be very anxious for them to feel that this is done well. But I understand, why the cities would like to have all the I's dotted and T's crossed before.
Well, he
then.
said he was a worrywart, so he
just-
wants
yeah.
all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed. Yeah. Am I hoping that we'll have a much better proactive public health program when this merger occurs? Is that one of the goals?
I think you've got good health departments now.
Okay.
You might see some improvement.
Okay.
But I think the improvements initially would be small.
Okay.
That the initial impact would be the cost savings.
Okay. Good answer.
But over time, I think public agencies in general, not just public health, are being challenged more and more. And it goes back to the point I made earlier about we're going to be stronger together than apart. And we can't predict exactly what the future of public health is going to be.
Sure.
You talk to the professionals, there's a great deal of discussion about going to population-based health, public health, which means fewer direct services. If that's the case, then education is going to be paramount in that scenario. And I think we've done a little bit of that with the city, sometimes by force rather than by choice. But now, as working together, as funds dry up, the county will be able to allocate those resources in a more efficient manner, I believe, because they're doing it for everybody.
Well, you know, because the county also operates the nursing home, you know, I can see where if I spend a little money to help keep somebody in their home longer and out of the nursing home, that there's tremendous benefit to the taxpayer versus having them go into the nursing home for lack of a home visit.
Yeah.
So, you know, it does kind of flow together for the county.
Okay. Anything else that you had on this issue, or that either one of you wanted to mention on the merger before we move on to another county-city issue?
Well, I think the issue in terms of what it means for the city, because our tax rates are very different in terms of what we levy for public health. And ours is, the city of Oshkosh's is relatively low. It's about 11.5 cents. And the rate that it looks like we're settling on is somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 cents. So technically it looks like it's an increase. Now, what will happen is on your city portion of the tax bill, it'll go down 11.5 cents. And on the county side, it'll go up 13 cents for a net increase of just slightly less than a penny and a half. And that really isn't a lot, but it's still an increase. So what's the benefit? The real benefit is going to be a lot of the fees and charges that we charge because we're smaller departments. Our overhead is just simply larger, and it's not spread over as wide an area. With a combined department, we can spread smaller overhead over a much greater area, and so that efficiency will enable things such as fees and charges, particularly the sanitarian charges for restaurants and bars and things like that. Those costs will definitely go down because the county's fee schedule is much less than the city's, and we will move to the county's fee schedule. So businesses and anybody who takes advantage of those services will see a reduction in those costs. So it's you'll cost a little more in this area, but cost less in another area, and the net result will be better services.
I think it'll be hard for people to actually see those changes because even with the county absorbing the two city health departments, our total levy's flat with the prior year. So that's very unevenly distributed over the different communities within the county, so it's hard for me to tell where an individual tax bill is going to come out, but I'm going to guess there'll be very little change in the county tax bills, even with the health consolidation.
Okay. All right, excellent. Want to talk about the safety building, and I know you've talked to the media about this already. I don't recall seeing anything in the press from you, but maybe I just missed it. So if there's something that we asked that you're uncomfortable with answering at this juncture because you're still talking, just let us know.
Yeah.
But, you know,
You handled that very well.
Thank you.
Now go in for the kill.
No, I mean, the lease arrangement with the city, and you were on the council when this was drafted, was that the safety building would be leased to the county for 7 years rent-free, and then after that it would be $100,000 a year, I guess.
Yes.
And you want that reduced now.
Sure.
You know, now that you're county executive, you're on the other end of this,
That's right.
and you want to work out a deal. Are you guys still in the process of trying to work that out? Has something been worked out?
I'm very confident that we can work something out to our mutual benefit.
So you're still
But
talking.
let me
We're
give,
busy with health discussions.
yeah.
Oh, good answer.
But let me give the county's
Yeah, no,
let me give the county's perspective.
Sure.
You know, I was on the other side of the contract when this was made, and I think what happened was that, you know, there was a teaser rent for 7 years, but it was based on the sales price of the building because that was a below market sale as well. Although I'm not sure how many people would want to buy a combined police sheriff's headquarters.
Yeah.
I think we anticipated that downtown rents would creep up a little bit year by year over those 7 years. And now after the benefit of seeing what's actually happened in 7 years, office spaces has actually gone down in cost in the downtown. So at $100,000 a year, we certainly will pay that for 12 if we don't renegotiate something new. But at that price, the incentive is for the county to give notice and then move out for 2013. And that's not good for the city because I think it's unlikely they would be able to find a tenant for that space. So wouldn't it be better for us to find a mutually agreeable number and reach a more long-term contract, maybe a 3-year contract on the space? that's the position I'm taking.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure can.
Okay, because I'm going to anyway.
Your show.
As a taxpayer, it matters little to none to me, because it's either going to come out of the county pocket or it's going to come out of the city pocket. One way or the other, the taxpayer's footing the bill. If I were the city, however, I would be saying, look, Winnebago County, we gave you a building rent-free for 7 years. We held up our end of the bargain, and we expect you to now hold up your end of the bargain, despite the fact that downtown rents have come down.
Well,
What say you, County, to that?
Well, yeah, that's a good question.
I'm quite interested in this conversation myself, so I'm just going to observe for a while.
We certainly will keep our commitment in 12 if we don't renegotiate something new. But what the contract provides is we pay $100,000 per year unless we give notice and move out. At that price, we'll give notice and move out.
Not that I'm trying to negotiate for you guys, but what if the city were to say, okay, give us the $100,000 in 2012, and let's just start fresh then, and we'll renegotiate with you something different for 13 and beyond.
Well,
Is that something the county would be amenable to you?
I need to know, because if we're going to move out in 2013, I've got to start the process of moving around offices that are
People.
currently in the courthouse to make room in the courthouse for one courtroom, a court commissioner, and family court counseling. So I'll have to move other things out of that building, and I've got the space in the administrative building to do that, but there's a cost, a capital cost to doing that sort of thing. I'll need to plan ahead for that, and it probably will take about a year. So I have to make the decision fairly quickly. There's also a budgetary impact that's adverse. You know, the city is very limited in how much it can change its levy from year to year. If we give them $100,000 one year and move out the next, they have no way of replacing that $100,000. We're probably all better off if there was a level payment for 3 years. And I would like 2012 to be part of the mix. But I think your point is still well taken. They could say, no, you've got a bargain. You didn't give us notice in time to get out by 2012, so we want the $100,000, and then we'll talk about the next 2 years. But if I don't know in advance that I'm going to get reasonable rentals for those subsequent years, really I have to represent the whole county. And from the
Sure,
town's
sure.
perspective, if I overpay the city for rent, that's unfair to them from their perspective. And
Sure.
you know, that's who I represent, is the whole county.
Well, I think Mr. Roloff
Yeah,
will
I
be
think
fair.
it's his turn to be that.
We've only got like about 45 seconds.
Well, there's
though,
not
so-
much to it. I have to be very practical about it, because the reality is the county could move out. So I have to hit that sweet spot that wants to keep them there, because the other thing that guides me is, in addition to the rent that the county pays, they also pay a portion, a prorated share of the utilities. And if they were to leave, I would be not only no longer receiving the rent, and likely not finding a good tenant, because we make good roommates, but we would also be assuming the cost of the utilities, and so we would be eating those costs. We don't have an immediate plans for the building, so until we figure out exactly if or what we want to do with the building, it makes sense to keep the county there. So we got to hit that sweet spot, and you're working there, Cheryl, to try to get that sweet spot for us. And those are the things that Mark and I are going to have to work through.
Okay, excellent.
We work well together. I'm sure we can reach an agreement that is of mutual benefit to our different taxpayer bases.
Would you run that by
Excellent.
Cheryl when you?
Yeah,
We'll clear the deal.
All right. No, that's great. Well, thank you very much for both being
Yeah,
here. We appreciate
yeah.
it, and especially on such
Yeah,
short
for your
notice.
Yeah,
land
it's
entry. We appreciate it very much.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.